Hi guys, my name is Borrodante, and welcome back to Overpain. What I just said. So today's patient is Pedro Willers, and this curious character of his. Hello Borrodante, that's one of my best digital drawings so far, on December the 9th, 2016. I did it using what I learned from your videos. The concept is from a friend's story. The doll-like creature is able to distort space. The mirror represents the darkness inside of him. If it overcomes the light, then the puppet becomes evil. I see. Well, let's see how we can improve this. Okay, let's start with the composition. I want to lift him up a bit. Obviously, kind of like that. Maybe a bit less for the mirrors. So as usual, let's first move things around with liquify, move tools and whatnot, and then work on the rendering. Let's save the artist's sign. I can see the bottom pair of arms is actually facing away from us. Like this is someone's back now. Interesting. Mirror check. Ooh, it's actually symmetrically made. By mirroring things. The background, I mean. I seem to basically like everything as it is, position-wise and proportions-wise maybe. There's some work on the foreshortening needs to be done, because this is apparently like a raised knee, but it doesn't look like it's raised, it looks like it's shorter. So let's follow the round shapes of a tilted cylinder with all the details to make it read properly. A bit of a weird twist here. Probably shouldn't rotate this foot so much to the side. Not sure what level of details we'll be able to pull off this time, considering there's like a full character in here with a background. But I want to make sure that we make the lighting more impressive maybe, and some other stuff rendering wise. So let's play around with that. I'll go ahead and make some decisions and then explain myself. So I moved the arms around a bit, because I felt like this super straight position of the elbows, it's kind of not very cool, so I did this a little bit. And then I worked on the wrinkles of the cloth on top mostly, because in here, obviously, Pedro doesn't really know how the cloth works, aren't we all? So I decided to think through how the cloth would go, meaning I would imagine that this cloth was resting downwards when the arms are in a normal position, somewhere going downwards. So whenever we raise the arms, in here there will be wrinkles like this, because extra cloth is getting gathered at this area. And from it, there will be wrinkles going all over the place in here, because this cloth altogether will be raising like this and creating the fold. So I'm trying to think how that would go in a most natural way, and thinking through the values at the same time. Brighter on top, kind of darker at the bottom, but I don't want to go with the lighting completely from the top, so it's kind of like softer since everything is lit very brightly everywhere. So maybe we should make this area a bit brighter as well. I probably will do that. Thought a little bit on the lighting here. Like, these arms should probably be a bit darker. And in the back, it's a good idea to make this shadow growing a bit softer so we would see the silhouette of the main character better. He has white hair, so it's better to make the background a bit darker. And there's a convenient shadow in there, so let's use that. Trying to make sense of the walls where they begin, but right now I just marked in a little bit. Decided to introduce a little bit of color dynamics here, so colors jump between different colors using this feature over here for the brush. But this is needs much more work, obviously. And right now I started working on the floor. I want to make more of a legit reflection on it, so we'll make it gradually darker closer to the bottom of the canvas, since due to the Fresnel effect, the reflectivity will get lower as it's getting closer to us looking at it from the top, so the angle becomes bigger and reflectivity drops a bit. And also, everything but the feet will be kind of brighter, not completely white, but getting close to that, even though, yes, there is a dark mirror back there, but we're probably not reflecting that exactly. Also, there's a diffusion going on because this is not a pure mirror, it's like a blurry reflection. So feet that are closer will be more or less sharp, although in here they will be already smudged. But all the mirrors will be super soft and blended together with the rest of the very bright white room. So generally, the background in here will be much brighter than the feet. So we should play on that contrast better. Because in here, this is not very, like, it shouldn't be such a low contrast. It looks a bit odd in that sense. So, I don't know, we'll see how I'll make it work. Let's continue. I'm really trying hard to question myself about all the values, especially with the balls inside of the joints, and most of the times they're a lot darker than they were painted initially. Like, there's no way they would be so bright there, because they're kind of like inside and the upper part of the limb is on top of it, so it's shading it a lot. When the joint is bent, then the ball would have a lot of light on it. So for instance, in here on the knee, it kind of makes sense to make it work like this because this knee is open. But down there, everything should be kind of dark. So yeah, pushing everything forward with the values and such, added some very saturated reflection at the bottom of the wooden hands. Kinda looks cool. Secondary reflection usually gets a bit more saturated, although there's not a lot of excuse for it in here, but whatever. There's something behind the screen that we don't see that makes it work like this. We just want the beauty. So yeah, getting a bit mesmerized by rendering this guy. It's kinda cool. I don't know why. Maybe because I love doing this. Yeah, making values a bit more appropriate makes things always, you know, look more impressive, and that's really cool. Interesting thing about the colors, like in here there were so much dark areas, which makes no sense, that's why it looked kind of weird. Like the contrast between the top of the wrinkle and the bottom is insane. This is as bright as it's in here, which is not true, like this is not facing upwards enough or whatever. So this wouldn't be that bright, and there's no way this can be so dark, because there's a reflected light everywhere. But there's always a question, like, if you don't make this as dark, it's gonna look just low contrast. But that's something we mentioned in the previous episode of Overpaint. Basically, you have to choose this reflected lighting and fill in this side area with this reflected light. And its overall will be darker than this light on top, because that's facing upwards and it's brighter. And then you choose the wrinkles where they go and add super dark shadows there, because that's where the wrinkle is like covering the surface from all the light, and that's where we get the dark shadows. And that's how you get this context, that this is not just the low contrast, but this area is just lit with the reflected light. That's why it's not very dark. It has this brightness on it. And in here, we can see that, yes, this is a full contrast image, because here in the wrinkle, there's a dark shadow. But there's not a lot of that shadow, because it's just a little wrinkle. And this is how you make the human eye believe that this is not just a low contrast, but a softer lighting. Needs practice. Study photographs. I know you want. So yeah, also I fixed the angles on this thing. Probably needs more work, like I think this thing should be higher due to the angle. So somewhat like this. And before, you see, there were completely in the flat area, like one of the legs is lifted, but it's shorts or not. So that made an extra confusion about the angle of the leg, and it just looked shorter. The original is there. So yeah, let's work more on the overall ambience and the values and see how that's basically all we need to make things look awesome. Okay, so I worked a little bit on everything. I like the way the wood, especially the legs, are shining now, kinda looking cool. To make that work, you just find the direction of the cylinder and you just make a line in a convenient place. Not a very high contrast, but later on, like, sometimes you can go really low contrast like this. But if the surface is facing upwards, it's a good excuse to make a very strong highlight like this. And just search here and there where you can add these low contrast or higher contrast lines. Cylinders turn all the reflections into lines, so that's a very convenient, easy way of doing things. So I think we don't have the time to touch all the surfaces, all the hands and feet, so they're not gonna be very detailed. I added some demonic, nervous streaks here and there in the reflections, kinda looking cool. Some darkening on the sides and a foggy white spot in the middle, just to make sense out of everything, to create a common dynamics, like a middle lighting, middle composition, centered everything. Now, I want to spend the last 15 minutes detailing the head, and maybe the color too. I already fixed some values, especially in the chin. Everyone always forgets that this thing is also facing upwards a lot and doesn't really go away much. So it should also catch that light. Basically, there's like this area, the nose obviously, and in here the cheekbone and this thing is basically all catching the light except for the dark area under the lips, and surprisingly almost never a dark area under the nose. You should make it very subtle, because it's so easy to go Hitler there. This area may be a little bit darker, but in a very subtle way. That's the biggest problem that anyone who's not very experienced usually has, and I have that as well, is the fact that you gotta respect subtleties a lot more, especially when it comes to values. It seems like getting darker means like getting a lot darker, and going a very little darker seems like that's not gonna really change anything, like it doesn't really work, but it does. You just have to believe it. You have to believe in yourself. Especially in a way of, at least like here, instead of going just bright and dark, go bright, semi-bright, and then dark. Already you'll be able to visualize this reflected light better. So yeah, let's work on the face, on the eyes and the lips and the color. Nice work with the reflected light on the upper lip from the bottom lip. That's cool. I only made the bottom lip a bit brighter. Wow, you're really stoned now. Should probably slightly open the eyes a bit more. Feels like the shoulders need a bit more of this air perspective aura. Kinda looks good on this character. Okay, done. Well, not really done, but the overpaint is done. Kind of an interesting result. Feels like the walls need to be a bit darker. Let's give it a try. Yeah, feels a bit more appropriate to do this. Nice. I really like how the air perspective glow works around the torso and legs. Final touch. Now we're done. So yeah, mostly the problems were with the subtleties of the values, and of course with the angles, which is always a hard part. To rotate the leg properly, and the feet, it's not easy. And of course here and there some proportions, I don't know, the hands were really small, but maybe they were meant to be like that? Probably not. I'm gonna say probably not. On the face, you just really should do some studies of the portraits to learn how the faces go a bit better. But in general, of course, usually all the mistakes with the proportions and some decisions on the face and whatnot, they're usually coming from the fact that the artist is being overwhelmed by, you know, problems with the lighting or with the foreshortening, which is really hard to work on if you are not experienced enough. So you don't have enough attention to also make proper decisions on other stuff. So that's understandable. In many things here, I'm probably just like finishing the work. I feel like something should be... I'm gonna just paint with the black in here, some kind of little something. Like some fancy tie of some sort. Oh yeah, much better. It was really missing something, very empty area here. So yeah, I added a little bit of details on the clothing just because it felt a bit lonely. Just blue cloth and that's it. So yeah, tell me guys what you think. Was it helpful or not? And yeah, if you want me to overpaint one of your works, you can upload those on my Patreon page, the link in the end of this video. I should probably say, please don't upload sketches, like drawings, or at least like colorized drawings where you try to shade it, so I would have something to work with, like actually fix the rendering and stuff, and not just render it myself. That's not the point. I need to see you fail to fix something. So yeah, please fail for me. So yeah, this is it. And I thank you for watching if you did. I guess you did if you're here. Leave a like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Embrace the darkness. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. How come that in my version eyes are not that closed, but the face is much more stoned?